Wheels, 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 what an absolute minefield. Normally when I review wheels, it's all about are they any good or not and what makes them good or bad. Today is slightly different because I want to focus on my perfect wheels. You know, what really suits me, what do I really admire in a set of wheels. So here's the story. I am 47 years old and I don't race competitively anymore. Maybe the occasional Grand Fondo, the non-competitive sportive, some events that are going on, and of course the Weekend World Cup. But I really appreciate really good quality stuff. If you watch this channel, you know that I really look for good quality, reliable, dependable products that feel like I'm making an investment. I'm not interested in risks and punts. I like stuff that I can repair, stuff that I can depend on. I also like really good, fast, high performance kit as well. I like to feel like when I go out, I'm at the limit of my skill level. I recognize that my skill level, I am not Tom Pidcock. I do not spend 40 hours a week on a bike, but when I'm going down a hill and I want a corner, I want to do everything at the top of my skill ability, and I don't particularly want to take excess risk. I don't want to spend time in hospital. I've got staff and people that depend on me, etc., their livelihoods. I don't like pain either. My sort of general philosophy when I buy things, I like to think about my purchases as being investments, considered, if you like. Let's go through my clothing. We buy organic cotton t-shirts and we use like natural inks because I know that this lasts a long time. This is our staff uniform. I buy good quality jeans from brands like Nudie and Hyatt because I know they're going to last me 5, 6. I've actually got a pair that's probably at least 10 years old actually. So I like to spend the money where I think I'm going to get the value. Cycling is a weird sport, isn't it? Because it's probably one of the only real sort of top end sports where we can buy the same equipment as the pros. But with that comes that temptation to look for that incremental marginal gain, which might not actually be right for what I'm riding. Like I say, I don't have the skill level, definitely don't have the aerodynamic profile of some of the pros, etc., but I still like good, fast stuff. Now, within that sort of philosophy, I always like to think there's got to be a good, better, best. Where do you put the brakes on your spending? And so this video is going to take us through that, but we are going to focus on the dream set of wheels. So let's start our benchmark, and I won't labour the point on this because I've covered this many, many times, but I want that durability, dependability. If you walk into your local bike shop, they'll probably talk you through a set of wheels that you can pretty much buy from Fast Forward. These are the Riots. This is the 44 depth, probably our best selling wheel. A hub that you can service the whole world over, spokes that we can replace in a jiffy, brass nipples which aren't going to corrode, and a rim profile that is nice and stable, 23mm internal, and is going to suit those tyres that you want. Brilliant. But let's say, taking that same philosophy that we talked about, and I want to go for something, do you know what? I want to go with something a little bit lighter, something a little bit snappier, something a little bit more pop to them, because these are great set of training wheels, a little bit on the heavy side, but I want something just a little bit more exciting. Where do I go then? Well, the obvious place is to jump on the carbon spoke bandwagon. You see, you take out those steel spokes and those brass nipples, you replace it with a carbon spoke. You're now getting about a 1.5 gram, maybe even 2 gram saving per spoke. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you know, you've got 24 spokes on the front wheel, 28 maybe on the back. That adds up pretty quickly to an amount of weight that would definitely influence your buying decision. More to come on these, I promise, because these are actually Mavic's attempt at getting back in the game, so to speak. So what happens if I really want to push the boat out and I spend another £800? We are now into Scope Artech territory, NV SCS territory, and Princeton territory. And out of all of those three, these are the ones that probably suit me the best. The Scope Artechs, we featured them a little while ago. They are definitely hitting the headlines as being the fastest and the lightest for the money. But you probably saw from that video that the build quality wasn't quite there, and there's definitely just a little bit in the back of your mind thinking I am sacrificing some durability for absolutely all out seconds worth of savings. Maybe meeting that brief at the start, those seconds aren't quite so important to me as they are to Simon. So Princeton then, what the hell makes these so expensive? Is it all branding? Is it all hype? or is there some legitimate stuff here? You might remember we featured the Princetons when they first brought out the new Wakes. They've done loads of aerodynamic testing to them, like trying to get that sail effect, and they really improved the aerodynamics. And since then, they brought out the Peaks. In fact, loads of stuff has happened with Princeton, to be fair. They have gone through the mill in terms of distribution in the UK. And now, I'm really happy to report that we can now get Princeton direct from Princeton, which makes me so happy. It's so much easier for us as a shop to work directly with a brand. So we get these directly from America, and that's made everything so much easier and cheaper. You might not believe it, but yes, in the UK, these are now cheaper than they've ever been, or should I say less expensive than they've ever been. So when we think about the wheel, we have 4 components. We have a rim with the nipples, have the spokes, and we have the hub. What I like about Princeton is you get to pretty much choose most of those components to suit. But it's all about the rim. This is the stuff that Princeton do 2 things. They do the build and they do the rim. So the Wake is a beautiful rim. Like, it's really, really deep hook and no rim tape, which means that all the nipples have to be threaded through internally. Now, it's actually a fairly tricky job. You basically put a little bit of spoke on it and then use a magnet to weave it into position, and then you build the wheel normally from there. With something like this, there's loads of room. It's not as difficult as it sounds. It makes it a little bit harder, but it is nowhere near as hard as truing a wheel with a carbon spoke, because the carbon spoke, you have to remove all of the rim tape, and then you have to clean off all of the old tubeless fluid and all of the old sticky residue, do your truing work from this side, and then obviously replace the tape. This is still much easier to put a nipple through the valve hole, use a magnet, pull it into position and replace your spoke. Still significantly easier. You can do all of that with, well, you don't need rim tape. There is no rim tape, so it's still significantly easier. Now, the amount of research that went into these rims is utterly insane. And speaking to Harrison, reading through his white paper, they went to the nth degree to work out not just what's most aerodynamic, but how it's going to really interact with the tyre. Now, they are positive that somewhere between a 28 and a 30mm tyre is the most optimum for all out speed. And I think that is definitely what we're experiencing. I think a lot of us have tried, and we've done that pendulum where we've tried 28s, tried 32s, and we're like 30mm. Harrison from Princeton will probably argue that we need some of the brands to make a 29mm tyre and be, you know, balanced in between. Anything wider, sure, you might get lower rolling resistance, etc., but you're also adding a lot of weight and you're adding rotational weight. And I think that's why we're settling at 28-30s. The nipples, you can choose. If you want to save a little bit of weight and go aluminium nipples, that's great. If you want to specify brass nipples and go for something that's not going to be susceptible to galvanic corrosion, you can specify that. Now, next up, steel spokes. I still maintain this is probably the best choice for a wheel build. Steel has some elasticity in there. As you stretch it, it will come back. Carbon doesn't, which means that you have to build a carbon wheel exceptionally tight, because as soon as you put a tyre on it, everything compresses. I still think that steel is the better choice for most situations. You have to be really dedicated to saving those grams to opt for a carbon spoke. Let's take a really close look at these. The quality is exceptional. While I put it in the rack here, I'm going to show you some footage that I took from inside, and it is so clean on the inside and so shiny. It's actually hard to use the boroscope because the light just bounces back at you. But you can see here you've got a taped rim bed in there reinforcing that area where the spokes are. You can also see the spokes nestle in their own little cup as well. Similar to what Envy do, but done ever so slightly differently. So you've got a really good seat for the spoke there, and they need it because these are built super, super tight. And you can just feel like any wheel builder will take these out of the bag, instantly go, wow, yeah, they are a tight wheel build. And the wheel builders at Princeton must be really good. These are actually hand built. There's no machines involved in this. There are literally teams of wheel builders that will use a jig like this and they hand build it to perfection. Interestingly, if you were to build this in a bike shop, home build, I think you would struggle to get them as tight as this before you started to strip out the heads of the nipples, but these are all absolutely perfect, and all of the spokes perfectly aligned, which is lovely. Now I'm just spinning this and just seeing like the run out is just insane. If you're getting a run out of like 0.5, that's pretty good. Amateur wheel builder, doing pretty well. A professional wheel builder will probably aim for 0.2 millimeters worth of run out on both the radial and the lateral. So, I mean, this makes me so happy because it is, apart from one tiny little bit, that's almost at 0.1. But we're going to put a tyre on it because what matters is whether it maintains that spoke tension and that run out when there's a tyre fitted. But the radial run out on this is definitely less than 2. And it's the radial that I think is probably the most important. If you get a slightly egg shape, that's when wheels go out of balance. Most disc rims these days can probably handle a little bit more lateral, but that's perfect. Let's have a look at the tension. So I'm just using this Super Team. Remember that we are not measuring tension with this, we are measuring deflection, and it's the deflection that we can then use the tool over there to measure the tension, but we're not going to necessarily have to do that. What I'm more interested in here is the consistency, and a deflection gauge is perfect for that. Again, this is not a tension meter, this is a deflection reading. The number is meaningless. What matters is just how close they are. That's 19, 20, 20, 20, 20. I mean, this is going to get boring, but this is, yes. I mean, to be fair, this is the quality of a wheel build that I would aim for. If someone was buying a really expensive wheel set from me, this is what I would personally aspire to do. So, yeah, 2020. The fact that they're doing this on a mass production is excellent. Yeah, all of those spot on. One that's arguably 19, 19 and a half, everything else is perfect. This is a front wheel, so arguably the steeper side should be tighter. Just bring that back. Oh Jesus, no, 20. That's clever. 20, 20, 20. How the hell have they done that? Okay, quick spoke count, because in theory that's only really possible if the spoke count is different. But I think we have got equal number of spokes.
Let me try and explain this better. You see, this wavy profile isn't just about vortex shedding and keeping the air attached longer for better aerodynamics. It's also going to massively help with the balancing the spoke tension. You see, on the steeper side, the spokes actually attach to the peaks, therefore shortening the hypotenuse of that triangle and giving you the opportunity to equalize the spoke tension left and right.
When it comes to the rim finish themselves, there's actually 3 what they call tiers. So the tier 1, which is the least expensive, the one that most people go for, is a slightly more matte finish, and you get a choice between black and white logos. Then there is an absolute gloss finish. You pay an extra £200 for the gloss finish, and they look absolutely stunning. And if you really want to push the boat out, you can get them into different colours, and you pay another £200 for like the tier 3 ones with all the coloured graphics on and stuff. So, I mean, the finish is beautiful. The only other wheels that I would say that I've ever seen this good is probably the Campagnolo Borers, even come close to that. I mean, they're even using fairly long nipples. And I know that quite a few brands will still claim that if you want ultimate aero, DT Swiss are big purveyors of this, then you should have the nipples internal. Princeton are really famous for their wavy design. These are called the 65-60, so 65 at their deepest, 60 at their shallowest, so a 5mm difference. Now, in my experience of riding these, any wheel that does something on this leading edge generally tends to work a whole lot better in crosswinds. There is something about how the air is disrupted when it's being hit from the side. You still feel the wind, don't get me wrong, but it's predictable. It's like a little gentle push, doesn't grab at the wheel. So if you might remember the early days of carbon wheels, when you had a very, very sharp bleeding edge, then you would quite often get little vortices appear and the wind would snap at your front wheel. It makes it really disconcerting, especially if you were going fast and your wheel suddenly snaps. It's never really enough to knock you off your line, but it's definitely enough for you to pull the brakes and just steady yourself. With these, I've always found that when you're riding, it's just like, oh, okay, I can feel the wind and now I'm back on track, and it's just very, very predictable. When it comes to choosing the hub, it's not about just choosing one at your price point. There's actually loads to consider there, and I definitely put a lot of thought into it when I commissioned these wheels for me. And I went for these. These are the Chris King version. Now, these are amongst the most expensive and the heaviest. So why on earth would you do that, Paul? Well, Chris King are like heirloom durability. You'll probably never touch these in 10 years of ownership. They are brilliant. They are super smooth. I love the sound they make. It's just that lovely Chris King buzz, ooze quality, and I personally just love them. It suits what I want to do because I'm busy fixing other people's bikes, and a set of wheels like this I want to fit to my bike and just go ride. And Chris King are just a beautiful piece of engineering. Sure, they're a little bit heavier. I don't think that weight is going to bother me too much. So let's weigh it then. So a rear 65-60mm, remember, with a Chris King hub, steel spokes, is 800 grams. And let's make that up to a pair with some very careful balancing. 1,465. So still ever so slightly lighter than the fast forward rights that I showed you at the beginning, but deeper, considerably more durable, no rim tape to worry about, but significantly more expensive, in fact almost double the price. This is, for me, is the ultimate fit and forget. The only time I ever really expect to touch these wheels is when I've got to replace worn out tyres. So for me, this is my dream set of wheels. 1,400 grams, ultimate reliability, ultimate dependability. I'm going to fit these up with a set of tyres and get them out for a ride in a second. Before I do that, I also want to show you the ultimate in lightweightness from Princeton. This is the Tactic hubs. And these are the TR01 versions, so the lightest that they do. Again, steel spokes, same rim, and we are at 667 grams. Absolutely outrageous. And if we add a front wheel to that, 1,264 for a 65mm deep rim. So totally up there with all the lightest weight stuff on the market, but using steel spokes, and a lot of them as well. They have not skipped. You know, we are still 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We're still 24 spokes on the front wheel. That's like, just consider what that means for a second. If you go and look at another wheel that's maybe saving another 100 grams off of that, and look at how they've achieved that weight savings. You know, they'll be running carbon spokes, there'll be maybe even Kevlar spokes, you know, there will be a reduced amount of spoke count on there as well. And with those hubs, you're getting that familiar high performance noise.
Let's have a look at these tyres then. Now these are the zips, these are the 29mm Aeros, and we are measuring 28.6, and these should be 33mm external. You can see a part of the rim just here reminds me of those Specialized Roval wheels. And these look the absolute business. These are the Pirellis, these are the 30mm, they're Aero tyres, and they measured slightly over 30.3 on a 33 external rim. So what Pirelli have really done is to try and work on this join between tyre and rim, so it's just a beautiful smooth profile, so you get that lovely aerodynamic roundness to that, and that looks the absolute business. Looking forward to trying those. Won't know until you ride them. I suspect that the aero gains are so slight that I probably won't notice, but we'll find out. So if you sort of sort this by price, at the £4,100 mark, you've got the Chris King total reliability, dependability. You've got the Tactic TR01s, which are the lightest ones you can get. And after that, you have the DT Swiss 180s, which is like the compromise in between those two. At the £3,450 price point, you have the DT Swiss 240s, again, probably the most serviceable, reliable ones. And then you've got the TR02s, which are the lighter version, but only by 25 grams. And then the entry point, I guess, is the White Industry ones at 3,150. And that hub is somewhat similar to a Hope or an Industry 9, but with some nice little additions in there as well. Right, ride time. Oh Jesus, almost forgot you are not getting away that lightly, Princeton, because I want to see if your spokes have held up to be intentioned. Picking on this front wheel again. Let's just take a look at this run out. Remember, this is measuring a whole millimetre the whole way around. So this is, I mean, that's less than 0.2 with a tyre fitted. That's exceptional. If you work at Princeton and you build these wheels, like, bravo, man. Like, there'll be wheel builders who think they're extremely good, who don't do anywhere near the quantity that you do, are not getting anywhere close to that. These are all reading. They've lost one little mark, 19 on these. Yeah, there's a little bit of loss, so like more like a consistent 19. Very, very consistent here. Maybe that one's gone down ever so slightly more like an 18, 19, Jesus. Just. And the problem with wheel building is that the longer you take, the more you've got your tool engaged on the nipples, and the more likely you are to create little scratches and marks and stuff. So it's always got to be a point where this wheel is perfect enough, and if I do any more, then I'm going to risk like little micro damage, and I'm not going to achieve anything from it. I mean, this is beautiful. It really, really is. The fact that the spoke tensions are equal left and right is blowing my mind. And the fact that they've only lost 1 point of deflection is incredible. Right, stop dreaming, ride.
The best handling bike in the world, with the best handling wheels in the world. Just an utter grin fest. Here we go. All right, let's get serious for a while, because these are expensive. Considered a purchase. What is the difference? Now, compared to the Scope Artech and all those lovely wheels that I've been riding with those carbon spokes, they felt loud, they rattle, you know, they vibrate. You know, these just don't. They feel absolutely solid. They feel like they're a heavy set of wheels, but they're just not. So when you get to the rough stuff, you just crash on through it. It's great. It just feels like you're riding a wider tyre, you know, like riding a 35 or a 38 or something. It just feels so together. Under braking, probably where you feel it. And it just reminds me of that mantra that Princeton have, fast always. And it's a bit of a play on words, but I kind of get it, because you brake later, you brake with so much more confidence, you just carry a bit more speed into the corners. And that's what it's all about, I guess, for me, because they might not test the fastest in a wind tunnel. When it comes to a real world situation, I'm probably going to lose more speed from touching the brakes when I don't need to. I think that's where us amateurs, or even the pros, probably find an advantage. they hold speed or they find speed where they didn't expect to. God, I'm enjoying this. Pre-hub sound is just a lovely, subtle, high quality buzz. You can't not love that. So, final thoughts in. If you're the sort of person that likes to jump on the latest fad, you're not going to really understand these wheels. If you're the sort of person that likes to invest in quality for long-term ownership, you're going to love these wheels. These are the wheels that you are going to feel the pain on year one, but yeah, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, I think you're just going to continue loving them, and every year you're just going to grin because they're just delivering. And now the technology is stable enough to make that investment worthwhile. Disc brakes are established, 28 to 30 millimeters pretty much established, 12 millimeter axles established, 65 millimeter rim depth pretty much established. Right now is probably the safest bet to invest in something like this. And ultimately, if I can leave you with one thought, you're just not going to be disappointed. I can't see any way that you could be. Beautiful.